as soon as we're ready, I'll start recording.
Yes, we are live on Zoom here.
Thank you.
Okay, and
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the Chatham Township Committee meeting of May 21st, 2024. We are returning from executive session, so our clerk did confirm that adequate notice was given. I would ask everybody to please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Normally, I would begin with our mayor's message, but I think our agenda is fairly straightforward, so I think I will hold off on that and maybe add something to my report. I'm going to move into Township Committee reports. Committeeman Lois, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you. All right, well, swimming season is almost upon us. I'm the Colony Pool liaison, and Colony Pool is ready to open. We have a resolution on tonight for confirming the snack bar, which is good. Vespucci's is back. Our memberships are open, swim lessons open, tennis lessons are open, and swim team open for signups. So please take part in that if you can. And I'm going to keep it brief and the only other thing I would just remind our committee here that Energize NJ, that we still have the ability to have Yolanta come and present to us what JCP&L's Energize NJ investments might be in our community, because they will be asking for a rate rise, and we could stick that in here somewhere. All right? Thank you.
I like how you said that. We could stick that in here somewhere.
At some
That
point,
rate
we
rise
should
that they're
just
asking
listen
for.
to what they have to offer us for this rate increase, right?
Mr. McHugh.
Yes, starting with the Environmental Commission, where everybody's reminded that they'll have a booth or table at Fisher-Wack, which is going to be among us or upon us before we know it in early June. They had a great native ordinance discussion within the meeting that we were discussing, and they're very supportive and excited about that. I look forward to additional follow-up as well on the noise and landscaper discussion from the other day. They'd like to certainly see follow-up on that. Additionally, the Sustainable Jersey, the documents and everything's been submitted. Looks like we're probably focusing toward a bronze certification this year. Let's hope that occurs. The library had a great celebration last week, 100 years. So we're in triple digits down at the library. It was a terrific celebration a week last Friday. We started off with certainly Mr. Hollander, Karen Brodsky, Lynn McGrain, and Mayor Dempsey saying a few choice words. The Wells sister giving some great history from the township perspective. And our own deputy mayor with some choice words as well. Thank you, Mr. Choi. Moving on from that, the Open Space Committee is going to meet this month on the 28th for those who wish to pay attention to that. And we're looking forward to a couple things to discuss in that meeting. Thank you.
Committeewoman Rowland.
Regarding the Historical Society, it is actually the 60th anniversary of the dedication of the first 1,000 acres of the Great Swamp Refuge in 1964, which prevented this whole area from being an airport. So there will be a lot of, some activities around that, and this building will have photographs from the Great Swamp, but from the past 60 years. So we're working on pulling that together, and then there will be a reception for that as well. On June 8th, Fisher-Wack Day, the library is hosting Michael Snyder, who will be giving a presentation at 1 o'clock on slavery history in Morris County. And then on Tuesday, June 11th, the library has invited Thomas Lee. He wrote this book. It's a historical fiction called The Chatham Patriot. And it was really a wonderful story, but it also highlights lots of areas around town and how they were during the Revolutionary War. So he's going to be speaking on Tuesday, June 11th at 6 o'clock. In terms of public safety, We were notified that the Passaic Avenue Bridge connecting Chatham to New Providence is going to be under construction beginning in July, and it will take approximately 6 months. So we're going to have to plan accordingly, and I believe Central Avenue will just get a little bit busier. So we know that's already an interesting intersection at Fairmount and River Road. So we're going to be very conscientious about traffic there and putting up signage to prevent, any issues. And I think that is about it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Good evening, all. With regard to all things recreation, I'd like to congratulate the Chatham girls 8th grade lacrosse who went undefeated this season. So fine accomplishment, and all those girls and the coaches and tireless parents who drove our precious girls locked in countless miles going to Connecticut and down to Central Jersey. So they are the unsung heroes, to be honest. I'm proud to report there's some good, earnest work forthcoming with regard to improvements to Shunpike parking lot. So I think I'm hopeful, optimistic, and excited to have an asset there that will function a lot more smoothly. We'll advocate for citizens of residents and our invitees, and just lower the stress level for parents dropping off and picking up. June 11th from 12 to 5 is the Fishwack Festival for the lacrosse community, so please do put that on the calendars. It is a festive affair with coaches versus players games and respective grades, boys and girls going at it. Hot dogs, ice cream, pizza will be served, and a DJ will be rocking out the latest and greatest tunes. Girl Scouts, the Gold and Silver Award Ceremony will be held on Tuesday, June 11th at 6:30 at the wonderful Stanley Center in Chatham Borough. We have about a dozen or so girls who have worked tirelessly and with quite a bit of passion to identify a project and fulfill the requirements that make them eligible for receiving a Gold and Silver Award. So very excited to see that tradition continue. Joint Recreation Advisory Committee, I'm happy to report, is functioning swimmingly. We recently had a field allocation meeting, so we're reinstituting practices that I guess prior to COVID were happening, and I think the communications are benefiting as a result of it. There are wonderful lines of dialogue between club heads, amongst the club heads, and also with the staff from both the township and borough. So I think ultimately the children all benefit who are participating in this program. So thank you, Carol. Thank you, Steve, Z, and all the club heads who attend these meetings. Tom Claps, Bill Karpowitz, also instrumental in making the meetings flow, informative and productive. And I think that's it, Mayor.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add for the senior center that they have a pickleball tournament that's coming up. So if anybody's interested in signing up and joining that, it should be a lot of fun. So just go onto the senior center site. They did have a successful paper shred fundraiser, so thank you to everybody who came out to support them there. I also did have an opportunity to attend not the library 100-year celebration, unfortunately, but the library volunteer recognition. There were many people there. It was a really lovely event, and they recognized, great mind things alike, think alike, they recognized Tom Salvis for his volunteerism. So, you know, he's just been wonderful to many organizations in the township and the borough. So we were pleased to see that he was recognized again by the library. And all the volunteers were also, you know, it was an appreciation event, and we do appreciate, I was amazed at how many people were there, and they do a lot of work on behalf of our community. So thank you to them for all their efforts. Okay, so we are going to move on to the hearing of citizens. Mr. LeConte, can you read the guidance, please, for the hearing of citizens?
Members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphone to be heard. If you are watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full, according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services.
Thank you. Do we have any written comments?
Yes, we do, from a Mr. Mike Martin of Jeffrey Court. It's a proposal for construction of bocce court on the Myersville campus. Need. Chatham Township is the only community in the surrounding area which does not have a bocce court. Madison, New Providence, Berkeley Heights, and Myersville all have such facilities with restrictions imposed on non-residents. And he says, Ben Burnich, who will be present at the meeting, an Eagle Scout in conjunction with other Eagle Scouts with the Chatham Troop, will assume responsibility for the program as an Eagle project. For Senior Center interests, Julie Reich, Executive Director of the Senior Center Chatham's, strongly endorses the project. Many seniors have expressed strong interest in this activity. For the bocce court, proposed dimensions, approximately 61 feet by 11 feet. And the email included a diagram. For the cost, he says, cost, we have received one estimate on construction, estimated cost of $14,500, which does not factor into account cost savings attributable to Eagle Scout participation. In closing, the Township Committee, through the Senior Center of the Chathams, provides excellent service to the elderly of this municipality. We do hope the committee members will authorize a further evaluation of this needed project to ensure another senior activity. This is a small investment for seniors compared to the amount of resources devoted to Chatham Township youth. From Mr. Mike Martin.
Thank you. So,
Obviously, we have members of the president here to answer
yes,
questions.
yes. And since we did just get this, we'll allow Mr. Martin and Mr. Burnich and the other Mr. Burnich, if they would like to speak during the public hearing, to talk about the bocce ball suggestion and effort on behalf of the community, which is wonderful. So thank you for suggesting that and for your interest in pursuing that. That's really wonderful. So we said they could come up, they could speak.
Yeah,
But
thank
also,
you.
if anybody has any questions, we'll give them an
Mike
opportunity.
Martin, I'm a member of the Senior Center, obviously, enjoy the activities, and 40-year resident of Chatham Township. There's a lot of interest in bocce among the senior that attend the Senior Center activities. Oftentimes, if they go to courts that are not in the township, are essentially to play this activity. So we think that this is kind of a need. I think the cost is very reasonable. We think it can be constructed either in the playground or essentially at this cell tower site, which I'm quite frankly not familiar with, but apparently some work has been done in that capacity. So either would be acceptable. I'm not looking for essentially a lot of amenities. We just want a basic court. So we're cognizant of the economics associated with this project. And Ben will just speak in terms of his support for the Eagle Scouts. Ben, you want
Okay, so my name's Ben Burnich. I'm I'm from Johnson Drive. I've lived in Chatham Township almost all my life. So, a little bit about, like, the whole Eagle Scout project deal is, Eagle Scouts have made a very large impact on the community. There have been countless projects done. Just for my troop alone, we have over 200 Eagle Scouts with over 200 Eagle projects. So just a brief example is one of my fellow scouts, AJ George, he rebuilt a pantry for the food pantry at the Chatham Methodist Church. And that's just an amazing thing that he could help just put his name on and make better for the community. And so this project for me is, I think it's very interesting because I'm personally very interested in public health. I would like to go to college for that. And I think that this bocce court would be able to help promote the public health of the senior citizens, but also other people can come use it as well. And I think that would be a great first step in my future career. And also just for building the court, that would be done mostly with Scout volunteers and some contractors for like the larger work, but the rest would be done with Scout volunteers and driven by me as the Boy Scout who is using this as my Eagle project. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody have any questions while they're here?
I did. I just thought that it was a very nice suggestion, and I appreciate you coming tonight. In terms of the recreation amenity, that is one we're missing, but it did strike me that it's very similar, at least in its construction, from my point of view, to our batting cages. And we have several batting cages at Nash and Shunpike, and they've been recently rebuilt with the help of our DPW. And I'm wondering if there's a synergy there, because it seems to me that, and maybe Mike, maybe we could explore this on the recreation subcommittee, but it seems to me that they're essentially surrounded by 6x6 or 4x4 wood. It's kind of cinders as a base layer, and they did an excellent job rehabbing our batting cages, and I guess they're sort of pitching cages as well. And I'm wondering if there might be something there for your project, and if you could take a look at those, at Shunpike and at Nash, and maybe consider that as to what all the options would be to work on your project. So would you be open to that, to look?
Yes, certainly we cooperate. I might point out the contractors that I contacted, you have to find somebody who is familiar with the bocce court. It's not a common construction project, so the estimate is one estimate. And the Boy Scouts or Eagle Scouts would contribute to this. But yes, we would be willing to look at the batting cage, whoever did that, and talk to them about this, because we're essentially talking about a shuffleboard. That's essentially what we're talking about, surrounded by a railroad timber. That's guys. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have an idea of, and this would be Ben if he's prepared the documents, do you have an idea of what the maintenance cost would be?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we talked about the maintenance for it. There would be drainage pipe below it, and essentially gravel would have to be put in periodically. I don't think it's any different from batting cage where weeds are growing, et cetera, et cetera. So
Okay.
I think that's a kind of given. Okay.
Wonderful. Any other questions or comments? Thank you again. So what I would suggest is we put it on the agenda for workshop, so then we can discuss it and talk about where would be the best place. Just so I understand, your idea would be to multi-purpose a batting cage, or,
I was just saying that the construction methods were similar, and our DPW had done that sort of in-house, internally. And so we have some skills. Now, I don't want to speak for them, but it does seem to me that there's some synergy there in terms of how that might be constructed or done.
okay. And the estimate that you provided, was it
Well, the
1450?
estimate is from one person. I haven't qualified him. So if the committee deems it appropriate, I mean, I can talk to other people, but it's, at this stage of the game, I just wanted to get a sense whether I was in, Yankee Stadium or Ebbets Field as far as ballparks.
Yeah. But that's in terms of the estimate, that's solely the outside, it's not materials, it's the outside.
It's the whole thing. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
essentially construction and materials. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
we- Okay?
Okay.
Mayor, if I may just ask, though, what is the ask of the township? Is it for approval, authorization, for location? Is it funding? What exactly is the?
Well, it's funding and location. I
Okay.
mean, obviously, this is a senior activity. Theoretically, on Myersville campus, it would be good. There's a batting cage that is suitable. That would be fine, and the cost would be essentially borne by the town, but also essentially, I have to talk to the senior center, because I understand they essentially provide funds for these types of, I've been in touch with Julia, but she essentially said, well, you gotta go to the Township Committee and see what the level of interest is. Again, I don't think this is a big cost by comparison of project.
And the funding ask is exactly how much that you're asking
Well,
from
it
the
was
township?
11,000 was the estimate, but that doesn't include all of the work these fellows are gonna do. So, I mean, I can't factor it in. If the committee wants me to kind of get a more fine-tuned estimate for your next meeting, I'll be very happy to oblige. But, at this stage of the game, I can't get down to that level of.
Yeah, I do think that we do need some specific number, because everything, we have to work out the mechanics, but we do need a specific number of what that ask is.
Well, the ask was,
The $11,000.
contractor, without his help, which I indicated in the minute, was roughly 14,000.
Okay,
That's without their help.
okay.
And he's indicating they have several Eagle Scouts that would contribute in terms of construction. I mean, we're talking about, a shuffleboard. That's essentially what we're talking about here. And a leveling process.
Right.
Some drainage pipe. And
No, I just wanted to make sure that we
No,
know
no,
exactly
I
what
get it,
the
but-
dollar
Yeah.
figure is.
No,
Okay.
does the committee want me to come back to them with a more fine-tuned estimate, or is that appropriate, or?
I'm just debating how much work I want you to put into this. Yeah, I mean, if, that would be helpful, if we could get
Okay.
a more fine-tuned estimate. For some reason, I thought it said 1450. I don't remember seeing 14,000 or 11,000, but like I said, I speed read it while I was at work today, so, I probably
Okay.
missed that.
All right, so
We-
that would be prepared for the next workshop, is that what you're talking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be very difficult, though, for Mr. Martin to sort of incorporate the idea of like, hey, maybe our Department of Public Works has a steamroller that they would, be willing to flatten or something, I'm not sure what, but I would almost think it would be better to explore it with the department head like that first, to see what the capacity might be to help with this project, just because it would seem to me that would defray the cost, and it would be maybe majority labor of the Boy Scouts. There's a history, too, of the DPW and the Boy Scouts. I believe that the Boy Scouts renovated heavily Nashfield's clubhouse, or rather, a bathroom facility, and they the Boy Scouts did almost like a rebuild on the inside. So I know that there's a long history of the DPW working with the Boy Scouts, and specifically on Eagle Scout projects.
Thank you. Do you want to reach out to
I've
Rich?
got your contact
Yeah.
information then, and I think what I'll do is I'll set up a meeting with DPW so we can see how we partner and what they can do.
That's the internal,
Our public works.
okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make
I'll set up
sure.
a meeting with whomever you want, with our public
Sure.
works department, and then we can go over the project with them and see what we can do.
Okay, well, thank you for your interest and cooperation, I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. LeConte, do we have anybody on Zoom who's raised their hand?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else, I will close the public hearing. Okay, so the first resolution is Resolution 2024-132, amending the capital budget. did we have,
We actually will need to adopt this one, Mayor, tonight.
Oh, you are gonna hold off?
Yeah, just because the 2024-15, since that's the only one we're doing tonight, that number does match up. We don't have to do 132, so we can pull that for the next meeting.
okay. So scratch what I just said, we'll be pulling
Sorry
that
about
from the
that.
agenda. That's okay. Okay, so we're moving to the ordinances. Ordinance 2024-09, solicitor permit and peddler license fees. Mr. LeConte, do you mind giving a brief reminder of what this is?
Yes, this is based on a review of our solicitor permit and peddler license fees, and it recommends, or this would effectuate an increase in those fees from solicitor permits from $5 to $100, and peddlers from $50 to, let me double check, that went up to solicitor peddler, $100.
Okay, and if I recall, these were, hadn't been raised in some time and are
Yes,
well behind all our neighboring towns.
Solicitor permits, I think, go back to the 1960s, and peddlers were the 1970s.
Wow, okay,
And based on the review of other towns were all in the $100 range.
thank you. Do I have a motion to introduce the solicitor permit and peddler license fee ordinance?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any
You
dis-
can't second your own, Jen.
Any discussion?
Yeah, if I may, what's the historical activity with regard to fee issuances for both solicitor, peddler, and otherwise?
And how many we do in a year?
Yes,
That information was in the memo that you received for the workshop meeting.
okay. Would it be typical not, so there would be no element of enforcement on here? So in other words, the ordinance would be passed and the enforcement falls within the police department?
Well,
And
for peddlers, typically we have about 3 peddlers a year. They apply to me for a license. We have 3 ice cream vendors that get annual licenses, and this just raises their fee from the. It's $25 for a peddler, then they get an additional retail food license, which is $25. So this would increase the peddler aspect to $100. And then for solicitor permits, those are done through the police department. And, that varies year by year, but there are years where we've had, quite a few. And the police would be responsible for enforcing solicitors if they get a complaint that someone's going door to door trying to sell stuff. The police, even when people have their necessary permits, the police usually still get a call and have to go out to see what's going on.
And what counsel might the township proffer to residents who believe they're being interrupted by a solicitor, for example, who may or may not have a permit?
If people aren't sure if the solicitor has a permit, they can ask to see the permit, and because the solicitors are supposed to provide it on demand, and then if they're still concerned, they can call the police, and the police can come out to the neighborhood and make sure that the solicitors are authorized to be there.
Okay,
And we do also have that do not knock registry that solicitors are
Yes.
given, so if people don't want anyone coming to their door, they should be signing up for that list, and we do have quite a few registrants for that.
terrific. Thank you, Mr. LeConte.
Can they email to sign up?
Yes, the form is on our website. I usually get them by email.
Okay, yeah, it's been a while since I heard about that, I forgot about that. Any other questions, any other discussion? Okay, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes,
And Mayor Ewald.
Yes,
Motion passes, public hearing on June 25th.
thank you.
And I should probably note that, this is also in relation to canvassers, but our ordinance about solicitors and canvassers does have a list of organizations that are exempt. So if you look at that, like religious organizations, elected officials doing campaigns, there are, when it's Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts doing their cookie and popcorn sales, we do have, certain exemptions that wouldn't be paying this fee.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 2024-10, pool license fees. And similarly, this is bringing this up to date because it's well behind, hasn't been updated in a while.
Yes, this is also one of those fees that goes back to the 1970s, and the fee helps offset health department inspections. And since we've had a bit of inflation since the 70s, it makes sense to periodically review our fees to make sure that we're, charging an appropriate amount.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to introduce 2024-10?
So moved.
And second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just a request that we, I'm sure a pool license, this is not gonna pass for this year for the licenses, but just that they get a lot of notice, that this is coming.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, because our current, all our current licensees, they've all already submitted their renewals for this year. So this will essentially take effect for next year's renewals, and I'll make sure that they get notice, because they don't get their license until they've had all their inspections. So when I send their licenses out, I'll make sure that they're aware that next year the fee's going up a bit.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing on June 25th.
Okay, ordinance 2024-11, repealing sludge disposal agreement, section 2-68. 30,
So quick update, it's just repealing a section of our code that is outdated and, just not applicable anymore.
okay, thank you. That was
Same
less
with the
than the
follow-
30 seconds I was about to give you. I appreciate
And the
that.
next one.
Same with the next one, okay. Great, do I have a motion to introduce 2024-11?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes. Public hearing on June 25th.
And 2024-12, can we get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm racing ahead. This is 2024-12. Yeah, this was the same thing, okay. Any discussion? Okay, can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
2024-13, use of native vegetation. Can I get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. Shoddy, do you want to just give a brief 30-second summary of this one?
Sure, this came at the request of our environmental commission, and what it does is require the use of native vegetation. That's vegetation that is native to New Jersey. It's listed through an organization that identifies that stuff as well, and it's only for the purpose of municipal properties. So it does not affect private citizens on their private property.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? We did the motion, right? I did the motion in a second? Yeah. Any discussion? Wonderful. Can we get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes, and public hearing on June 25th.
Okay. We pulled ordinance 2024-14. There has to be some changes to that document, and that will be we'll be addressing that in workshop next time, right? Okay.
But as this is an ordinance, don't we need to table it? You could just skip it on the agenda. Thank you.
Ordinance 2024-15, capital ordinance, that one we're moving forward with. Okay.
If you want roads paved, then yes.
Can I get a motion to introduce 2024-15?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, do we have discussion? Wonderful. Can I get a vote, please?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes, and public hearing on June the 25th.
Okay, we're up to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything out of the consent agenda for discussion?
Number 11. a resolution 2024-129 cost of living adjustment.
Okay. Anything else?
Number 9, Resolution 2024-127.
Okay, and I think, did we have to pull out one of the the minutes for when Mr. Choi was not, Deputy Mayor Choi was not there? What would be the alternative? He just votes and says he's abstaining on those particular?
Right.
Understood?
Yeah, sometimes what we've done in the past is the minutes indicate that, the person who wasn't there votes in favor of the consent agenda with an abstention on those 2 resolutions.
Cool, nice and easy, like it, okay. Okay, so any other changes on, or anything else pulled out on the consent agenda? Great, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda with 2024-127 and 2024-129 removed?
So moved.
Can I get a
Second.
second? Thank you. Vote.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi,
Yes.
and Mayor Ewald.
Yes,
Motion passes.
okay. So we've got resolution 2024-127, authorizing shared service agreement, Health Department services. Can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
The general, summary terms for the agreement would not be specified in here in terms of cost, duration, any other pertinent agreement terms? Is essentially my question.
It doesn't have to be. We can certainly amend it to include those. It does not have to be in the resolution. You have the draft agreement as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be in the resolution. It can be in the agreement itself.
And the draft agreement was, I don't know how I'm missing these additional documents. 'Cause that's what I don't have, in order that I have the, for example, data on the
Okay.
fees.
It was in your packet for the workshop meeting.
From over a month ago.
From 2 weeks ago. So presumably you reviewed the documents you received for the workshop meeting. I know you weren't at the meeting, but
But they are not attached
Yeah.
on Friday's dismissive with all the documents.
has the committee already received and reviewed them for the prior meeting?
Okay, and that draft agreement did specify dollar amount? Because that was an item we were waiting on.
Mr. Shahadi, can you give the highlights? Because I know it matched the union, not the union, the prior agreement that we had in place. If you can give the highlights, and then it would be helpful when we have things that carry over, if we can add it. I think for the public also would be helpful. I realize, because otherwise you're searching for stuff. So if we could try and do that, that would be helpful to
Yep.
include.
I would pull it up. I apologize.
All right, so the terms of the agreement, essentially everything else is pretty much boilerplate as far as what's being provided, because it's spelled out by state statute, but as far as the cost goes, this initial 6-year agreement, 6-month agreement, because it's a first 6-month agreement to carry us through the end of the year, because our incumbent ends at the end of June. So from July 1st to the end is $57,570, which is consistent with the agreement with Bloomfield. And that's payable in quarters. The total cost for 2025 is $117,422, which is what, in terms of with escalation, what the other agreement also would have been.
For the following full year, you said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, understood.
Yep, and so the term of it is just 1 year and 6 months. We can agree to extend the agreement if we want, as long as it's before October of 2025, and 3-month advanced written notification termination, if we want to terminate Yeah, but not within this first, because we have to enter into a 6-month agreement anyways, so
And in terms of the services provided, it was mirroring the.
mirroring the exact,
Yeah.
and it's all of it spelled out in state statute as far
Yeah,
as
it's
what
all
a
referenced.
Board of Health has to provide under, is it the local public health, or local boards of health and performance for local boards of health. There's like administrative code and state statute on what they're supposed to do and provide.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do we know for things like, so the nursing services, when they do flu shots and all that kind of stuff, they use the Madison, even though we're served by Bloomfield? So they would just bring people in from Union.
Well, we used to have a relationship with Madison. Back when I started here, Madison was our health department, our health service provider. Eventually, Madison stopped providing the service directly. They entered into a contract with Bloomfield, so we kind of had Bloomfield by way of our contract with Madison, and then when our contract with Madison ended, that's how we came to enter into an agreement with Bloomfield. At the time that Bloomfield gave notice to the township that they were no longer going to provide a service and they were terminating the contract early, they noticed every other town that they work with, including Madison. Madison managed to go with Westfield, and they terminated their relationship with Bloomfield back at the end of December. So, in terms of health department, our relationship with Madison is completely no more. If we have something like a flu clinic for the next 5-6 weeks, we would be still through Bloomfield.
Mhm.
Whereas come July 1st, it'll be provided adoption through the new vendor.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Okay,
I'll just say just quickly that I just feel like this exposes the workshop format again as to something that's not exactly helpful. And so I think it does create confusion and create some back and forth that's kind of unnecessary, could be avoided.
okay. Okay, we're ready for a vote?
Mr. Lois?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, 2024-129, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved?
And can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, I would ask to tread lightly because we can't reference names without providing a rights notice.
No, their names are public, but, I mean, I have no intention to raise names, Mayor, but
Okay.
we're not prevented because this is a public document with names on it.
Thank you.
So it's listed in the agenda as cost of living adjustment. But then that doesn't match the resolution, okay, minor point. But I just feel like this is a way of telling the public, like, hey, we're doing a cost of living adjustment. But the truth is that there's adjustments in this that are 11% plus. So these are not COLAs. I mean, that's not the nature of this. And I think it's a little bit misleading to the public to list it as such. I don't know why that was done, or, I wonder if there's a way we can amend that, or if this was a mistake, because this is just straight up increasing employee salaries by substantial amounts.
Okay, so just to summarize for the benefit of the public, is we all received the information about the increases. So for the benefit of the public, the vast majority are the 3%, but there were some folks that needed to be brought up to competitive or to their peer level rates. So there were some increases otherwise. Is that correct characterization? Did you want to?
That's
briefly
correct, and it
summarize?
happened in very limited circumstances. But if I may, Mayor, Mr. Clerk, the resolution was posted on the website, correct?
No, it was not.
Okay. The title of the resolution, there's only so much that fits on these pages here in one line. Not everything is as descriptive, but the actual title of the resolution that you have before you states at the top of it, Resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris amending employee salaries for the year 2024. So it's pretty clear right there on the resolution. But there's probably 3 or 4 employees who are at the lowest rung of pay that received increases beyond just that 3% COLA.
Okay, thank you.
There was other pay that was not, I don't know, even by lowest rung, but there was certainly, of all the salaries listed, it wasn't median salaries, and they were getting boosted, at least from the information that I have. This information was raised to me by a resident, and a resident was concerned about the fact that the resolution wasn't posted on the website. And then the fact that the resolution doesn't match the title, I'm not casting aspersions, but it does seem as if, whether this is the case or not, but it does seem as if there's an intention to mislead, and I just wanted to make that clear because it's not my intention to mislead.
It's no one's intention to mislead.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, noted. So we'll just, for next time, we'll just make that a little more clear. Any other discussion?
Yeah, if I may, Mayor. The salaries and wages for our staff employees is probably one of the largest items in the operating budget. I read the email which accompanied this table, and I had no objections to the rationale for some of the numbers once I had some context for it. My question ultimately is, what I can't get an appreciation for is if the pay is within, for a particular function, if the pay is within industry standards, and having an understanding of how good of a job we are doing running the town with the staff that we have. And let me be more specific. So I'm thirsty for some rigor and discipline on having an appreciation that, well, gee, when we add our 32nd employee in a particular function, that would be within, I don't know, general municipal government standards. I don't know if the DCA has this type of information or not. How effectively a town is running its government based on the number of employees, the size of the budget, size of a particular department, the services delivered. I do feel like I look at these numbers in a little bit of a vacuum because I can't contextualize it. And I don't know if there are governmental studies. I think this is why DCA exists, is to be able to do these things, provide some surveys and data so that municipal government officials can contextualize these numbers and have an idea on how the org chart for municipal government should be built and grown over time. I don't object necessarily to a new hire, but I don't have any contextualized information to say this absolutely makes sense outside of the word of an advocate or champion who's looking to hire that person. And again, I'm not suggesting I don't want to hire people. I think there's ever increasing demands for services, and things invariably cost more, so I appreciate all of that. Having said that, I continue to be challenged to have a full appreciation as I look at these numbers, because I don't know what a high-performing, mid-performing, low-performing person of a particular function earns in the state of New Jersey or this county, or perhaps the 5 or 6 adjacent municipalities around us. Something like that would be tremendously helpful to me. I don't know if it exists. Again, I don't know if we can ask questions to get that, or.
Well, we used to receive that on this committee. I've been on this committee when we received that information. You're asking.
Information from
Banding.
the DCA or
Just banding,
Okay.
Banding of what these positions pay and, what.
and not just salaries, but again, like, hiring. So, the next hire, I don't know how to have an appreciation for whether or not that's a wise hire or not, other than, the information I get from the person who's requesting the hire. Again, I look at I find most organizations that run well have an org chart, and they understand the head count, they understand where the leverage is in terms of intellectual capital. And I don't, as an elected official, I feel important that I can say with some reasonable confidence, okay, we are managing the budget in terms specifically with regard to headcount, because that's an incredibly expensive component of the budget. And we'll sit in finance committees and belabor over lots of different figures, and a big one is staff. And I would like to be able to be confidently backing it with information that's contextualized here. And unfortunately, I don't have that. I don't know if it exists, and this may be a unicorn ask. I'm not sure, but I figured I don't know if anyone else shares my
I mean, I know,
reservations.
what Mr. Lois is referring to, Mr. Shahadi had provided us when there were higher level adjustments that had to be made. I know you provided competitive salary data, so there's definitely competitive salary data out there. We could refer this to the administrative committee to talk about how, an annual process when we're doing this to get competitive data, whether or not it makes sense to have 4 people in the construction office or whatever, you have 5, 6 people in the construction office versus, I don't know how easy it is to compare, like the police department, there's a head count that makes sense based on the number of people that you have in
That's
your
correct.
community, although this is, we don't have malls in our community, we don't have, we don't have a highway running through, so, but there are, there is information, and Mr. Shadi could tell us better than anybody else can, but, there is information out there that we can use to get, a little more comfortable with where we are and whether it makes sense.
We could look at headcount trends over time and by department and how many people have been in those departments over time. And you see, are we lower? Are we higher? Has it been consistent? Has there been spikes? Maybe that could help shed some light.
Short answer is we are understaffed.
I knew that, right, yeah.
We're definitely lower.
And
than
that
they've
would
been.
be,
Yeah.
given that, I think having more tools, whether it's an org chart or a better understanding of, well, gee, we are 3 FTEs short in this function relative to the other 5 towns who have a characteristically similar profile to us in terms of services delivered, population, so on and so forth. That then is useful information to say, well, high confidence decision to make this hire because we are absolutely understaffed, as opposed to just anecdotal information that we receive from, a subcommittee meeting or, dialogue that's taken place, here in public settings.
And just that being said, though, we have not asked for new hires, at least since I've been here, and the township, like for several years before that, there haven't been any new hires. It's just been replacing people that have left.
That may or may not be a problem, right? I don't know. So that's I'm not suggesting we not hire. I'm not suggesting we do hire. I'm just saying
I think
it's hard to
driven
make
by-
decisions with that, with what I find to be quite limiting information. That's my point.
I think there's a driver, though, is the budget every year, right? Because that's it. If there's a willingness to increase taxes, then, then you look at, that area, right? I mean, staff has maintained, that we've maintained the staff levels because there's not been a willingness or desire to increase taxes or change the appropriation in that regard. So we just make do with what we have. But
Mr. Troy just said
In
that
all
he knows
honesty,
we're
It
understaffed.
could just all be in your head too. You've got vast experience running, both as an elected official and in municipal government in your current capacity, right? So, maybe that just needs to be codified somehow for me, and others perhaps on the committee. I'm not sure.
it evolves based on
Yeah.
volume, demands. I mean, and certainly we could discuss this further in workshop or another time, but just, DCA doesn't do that, right? DCA will report, I mean, they do have information on different municipalities, how many employees, but they don't get so granular, they'll say this many employees, then they're not telling you what departments and where they are. There's a lot of home rule in New Jersey. Towns are left up to their own devices to figure that stuff out, and the state doesn't have the bandwidth, nor our municipalities all reporting consistently, so you don't have that. What we do have is, there's the New Jersey Municipal Managers Association, there are email groups among different administrators, where we're saying, okay, just, again, not, maybe 2 weeks ago, I got an email asking, hey, how much do you pay for this position, and this position? And they do informal surveys, and, I've done that in the past, and that's kind of where you judge, and you look, it's geography, it's population, it's volume, the type of the town, is it a sleepy community? As I was in Red Bank, population, not that far off from Chatham. And when I was in Springfield, again, population not that far off, but Springfield has Route 22 and a number of state highways. Chatham Township doesn't. Red Bank had a hospital, 3 theaters, a thriving downtown, a river community. So even though the populations may look the same, or the geography might be similar, then you have all these other things that can factor in. And I think it's hard to have that kind of survey across the board for 565 municipalities. So what tends to happen, North cost of living is different than South Jersey cost of living. And I think those all factor as well. How much does the county do? Union County versus Morris County, they do very different things for the municipalities in terms of some of the shared services, things like board health departments, what DPWs and county public works departments do, county parks also affecting. So I think it's going to be very hard to get to that level of analysis. You just kind of have to look at, okay, who are our surrounding towns? Because those are really our competitors in terms of the workforce. And looking at, the nature of that community.
I think we've had some ad hoc conversations, definitely about succession planning. When we were talking about a specific department that, there were some stressors there, we finally got to the point that we were down 2 heads. And then we said, okay, if we add a head, we might alleviate some of these issues. So I think we're having it on an ad hoc basis, but it's not kind of a formalized, across the board assessment.
You can imagine how much is bottled up about this topic, though, that, you can see from how much deliberation there is on this resolution, not really about this resolution, that this is a topic that we can discuss. We don't need a workshop to discuss it. We're doing it now. It's open. This works. And the resolution that's before us, the truth is that I don't feel that we've had enough deliberation on this topic particularly. We didn't look and examine this from my point of view, deliberatively, and that's why we've erupted in so much conversation right now.
Mayor, I just want to add, though, that we are spending more time on this resolution than we have on a PBA contract or a DPW contract. And those collective bargaining units, those budgets are far greater than this. We're talking about a handful, 2 handfuls of non-union employees that are getting a smaller raise than any other employee in the township is getting.
Okay. Okay, but in terms of some of the recommendations that we've had, maybe we'll think about that with the administrative committee. Something, I know you've got a lot of things on your to-do list, but something that in terms of, where we can improve some information that's provided. I mean, certainly, when we have this resolution to have, maybe some competitive salary data just provided at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add, these are all within the range. So we do have a salary ordinance that I think in 2022, when I came here, did that wholesale review of what are the ranges at the time, where should they be accounting for future increases, and looked at what other. So what we're doing is just setting the salaries within that range right now.
Yeah.
But yes, certainly if we can refine this, improve on it, whatever more information you want, please let me know.
Thank you.
Allow me, Mayor, if I can just make a closing point. My position is not that I oppose any of this information. As I suggested, or as I clearly indicated, the supporting email was helpful, again, contextualizing some of the increases that were beyond the 3%. Again, I had no objections to it. And I'm not necessarily seeking individual specific salaries. Again, I entrust, as an elected official, the administration, right, to be shepherding the various functions, and I entrust you that you're confidently and effectively doing that. I would be more interested in, okay, gee, how much do we spend in a particular function or department? And how many people are there, and what are they doing, and what do we believe is the efficiency of it, the effectiveness of it? That type of thinking to me is more beneficial than, well, gee, how much are we paying, Johnny and Sally? That to me is of less interest, so.
No, I understood
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Certainly got that. That's what we're looking for.
Okay,
As you said, there's a salary ordinance that maybe we could refer to go back to, just to, if somebody wanted to inspect what we expect, we could just go back to that and take a look, I guess.
Yeah, but that salary ordinance was, at the time, we were told that that would be for 5 years. So just to say, oh, we're gonna set it by resolution without much deliberation, and say, we're gonna have a 5-year range, that's a wide range there. So, to have more pointed and a deliberative process over setting a resolution like this, I think behooves us. And in terms of trusting this people and trusting the staff, I think that's a good idea, but at least in my party, one of the stalwarts would say, trust but verify, right? That was from Ronald Reagan. And so I would say that because of our position and the responsibility the public has in us, we have to verify.
That's what I just said. Inspect what we expect. That's just a different way of saying it.
okay. Thank you. I think we are ready for a vote.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and non-consent agenda, we have Resolution 2024-133, canceling and rescinding ordinance 2024-07. Can you give us a brief 30-second summary of that resolution? 2024 dash, yeah.
That one is the ordinance that was authorizing borrowing, financing for the fence keep purchase. Because we have that cash on hand in the open space trust fund, and, after discussion, we actually touched on this at the last workshop meeting as well. There's no need to borrow, which would just cost us a lot more money, and actually almost double the cost of the purchase. So, what would be, I think, $400,000 would eventually come out to be an $800,000 expense at the, extended life of the borrowing. So, thought this would be cheaper in the best interest of residents to do that.
Thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to approve Resolution 2024-133?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I think it's amazing that a month after passing this or adopting it, we would, or introducing it, we would then be, rejecting it. So the issue here is that if you make a purchase of land in our township, which a lot of residents have, they buy a home here, taking out debt on that land is not a bad thing. And the reason it's not bad is because land appreciates in Chatham Township. It's a vibrant, good community. And any basic financial management will tell you an appreciating asset is something you can take debt out on to purchase. Taking debt out onto things that are depreciating is a bad idea. But taking debt out on something that's appreciating is to your advantage. You get a interest rate arbitrage over time. So from basic financial management, it works. Specifically, here, what you're doing is land, which is our longest amortized, longest depreciation item, depreciation table, but it's really longest amortized if we were to go to bond. We could go to 40 years with this piece of land. So it's a great thing to throw into a bond, and because it's going to bring up your average, the duration of the bond, your ability to lend over time, to borrow over time. So that's a positive. The other thing about it is that when you make a purchase with debt and you have the cash on hand, what you're saying is, I have more productive things to do with this cash. You're not saying that, hey, I'm going to save $800,000 40 years from now, or I'm going to save the $400,000 40 years from now. What you're saying is, hey, I have other things to do with this money. And the other things we could do with the money that we're going to use are things like improve our fields. We could make improvements at Esternay that people have asked for. We could make improvements in many of our open spaces, whether they be trails, whether it be signage, whether it be parking lots, which are desperately needed. We could do all of those things with cash on hand. And then it would behoove us and be possible to invest in things that do depreciate, that do break down. But land does not, and land appreciates over time. So to make this purchase with debt is not a bad idea. The other thing is that what you're doing is you're taking money from current taxpayers, and you're saying, we're not going to spend that money to your benefit in the short term, such as investing in better bathrooms at Nash Field or a parking spot. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to pay off this piece of land, which we're going to have for 40 years, and you're going to be paying essentially now for future residents, because many of us are not going to be here in 40 years. We'll meet our maker, but before then, unfortunately. But so it doesn't make sense to me to make this purchase with cash. Now, that doesn't mean you have to pay it off over the 40 years. You can take your own schedule. You could make some lump sum payments. Maybe if there's a year when you can't figure out something better to do with the money. But right now, we know that we have needs, and we have needs at Nash Field with the bathrooms. We have desperate needs at Nash with parking. We have needs at Shumpike with parking. We have the whole field at Esternay. We've had multiple residents talk to us about that. I don't see how, as managers of this money or people that are responsible for this, how we can come up with a net present value argument that says this is the best use. So I am not for canceling this or passing this resolution in order to cancel.
Okay, thank you. The Finance Committee did review this recommendation, right?
Yes.
And does the Finance Committee recommend canceling the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, let's go to vote. Thank you.
Mr. Lois?
No.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Choi?
Yes.
Mayor Ewald?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, we're going to open the second hearing of citizens. Same rules apply? Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do not currently have any hands raised.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I will close the hearing of citizens. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Recording stopped.